Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Phil.
How's it going?
I'm very well. Lovely to see you.
Nice to see you, and nice to see your large, bulbous
Head.
windshield on the microphone.
Oh, you're going to talk about my head like that?
Well, it's nice to see your large, bulbous head as well.
Yeah. Sounds like the last line of War and Peace or something.
Yeah, and that's
Uh,
probably the most amount of mentions for the word bulbous in the opening minute of a live webcast ever.
um, it's so lovely to hear that song. Obviously, it is your lovely wife, Gabby, Foreign Slippers, and the moniker at that point.
Hmm.
But Gabby has something new out, I believe.
She does, yeah. Project called Fires of May with um, her old friend Gustav Spets from Sweden. So
Okay.
they grew up together. They were in their first band together, and a few years ago they started, yeah, sending music and stuff to each other, and then
Okay.
Gabby would write and stuff. So that's quite long in gestation. But yeah, so that's I think yeah they have just released the first EP,
Yeah.
so that's really lovely. So yeah,
Excellent.
anyone watching or listening should check it out. But yeah, that's been some time since she's done some music. So
Yeah.
um, but
She's
yeah, I
been,
haven't heard that track in a long time.
yeah, yeah. And a few other tracks tonight as well. We might hear that we haven't heard for quite some time.
Oh
Uh,
well, I mean that's only if you haven't prepared for this.
well, I can only speak for myself. um, yeah. Hello, by the way, everyone. Thanks so much for checking in again tonight. This is number 4 of 5 of these kind of things. And yeah, I absolutely love this record, and it was a kind of departure in some ways from what I'd done before. In fact, each record has been a departure from the previous ones. Um, can you recall, Phil? Well, you were living in London. I
Yeah.
remember this. Um, I For most records, I think we'd done some writing together, or you'd sent me songs. I remember for the first record, you sent me a bunch of songs, maybe 2 or 3. Feet in the Sky,
Hmm.
Your Vandal, maybe it was before that even, and um, By the Skin of My Teeth we worked on for the first record, and then and I Never Thought This Day Would Come. There was a whole bunch of writing,
Yeah.
Digging an Early Grave. You had all the words of that before we even got together. I Never Thought This Day Would Come, that song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, or no, By the Skin of My Teeth was in that record actually.
It was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so it kind of, I've always loved your writing, and then you had kind of got into more production.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you tell us like the journey from being a drummer in a band to writing and then producing records?
Yes, I can, and I will. um, yeah. Well, I mean, I get. Well, drums was always my thing. That was always what I did in bands, and I played in bands since I was like 12 years old, pretty much. But actually, pretty much from that time, it was always more than drums. It was always songs. Songs were the thing that kind of sort of I was obsessed with, and even now, I mean, I've you know been drumming for years and years and years. That's the thing I get booked to do more than I get booked to do anything else. But I'm only interested in that insofar as the songs are good, So I don't mind what I'm playing on the drums as long as I'm playing behind kind of a good song. So it was always that for me, and I was obsessed with songwriting for the kind of for as long as I can remember. Not so obsessed about learning instruments and things like that. That was always just like I think I was just obsessed, but there was something magical about it, and I didn't know what it was or how to do it. And eventually started picking up instruments and guitars and pianos and things. I didn't pick up the piano, but I picked up the guitar. Um, and yeah, and I think sort of the production thing, I suppose, kind of happened really kind of gradually because if, and anyone listening or watching, if you're in a band, when you get together in a room with people, everyone to some degree is a producer, because you're producing the track. You're kind of going, oh, well, how about I play this? Or, oh, don't play that because it clashes with what I'm doing. Or we need
Hmm.
something to happen in the chorus. Or what do we do in this section? So I think just years and years and years of that. And then I suppose, you know, the digital sort of revolution, if you like, in recorded music has been, yeah, it's been a kind of that was a big thing for me, in that it kind of put the power to make music, as it did for lots of people, right in your bedroom at home. You could sit and sketch out these little ideas. You didn't need to know how to operate a whole studio.
Yeah.
I didn't need to ask Dave Lynch to, as I did many, many times before that point, to sort of get out of his bed at 2:30 in the morning and go down and use the studio to record some terrible demo of idea I had, or my
Yeah.
brother, even Paul,
You were able to
um,
do it yourself.
yeah, exactly. And that was kind of, so you would start arranging things and sketching things out, and that from that led to songwriting, and from songwriting led to making demos and then making records.
Mm.
And I think every record I even was involved in, Foreign Slippers, I guess, included, there was some production involved in that, in terms of arrangement or writing. And I guess songwriting and production go hand in hand, especially these days, for better or for worse.
Yeah. I,
And so all kind of just
mm,
grew out of that. So, I think just before I produced this record, which of course was a co-production with Dave Lynch, and yourself, I'd done a record with Irish artist called Stuart Agnew. And again, he'd only really asked me to do some writing with him. So we'd sent stuff back and forth, and
mm-hmm.
he'd liked what the demos were sounding like. And then that kind of grew out of that. And I think that was a little bit like what happened with this record for you as well. It was
Yeah.
like I sent you something and you went, oh, this is great. I really like this. And
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll come back to the production thing in a while, but a couple of things I should say right now, that please ask questions. Um, you can. This is your chance to ask Phil Wilkinson things that you've always wanted to ask him, and really difficult things, and challenging things, and invasive, in fact, would be great.
like mathematical riddles.
Yeah. But please, yeah, please do jump in and ask questions. There's a Q&A which Admiral Nelson is kindly curating for us again this evening. Hello.
Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. We've only had one question so far, but I'm going to jump straight in with it,
Okay.
and one of my own, if I may.
Oh, yeah.
The one that's come in already is asking the question, are you giving us your entire oeuvre? Have you, Sarah Tizard asks, have you missed out O Pioneer in the series of albums? Is there a particular reason for that? Are you picking your favourites? Are there things that you don't like and aren't going back to? So that's question one. My question, and it might be something you want to talk about later, but I don't think we've touched on it that much, is obviously there are two artists and designers that you work with quite regularly, Gary McElwain and Tim Millen, who are often responsible for putting some visual ideas to your songs and your music.
Yeah.
Who are they? How did you choose them? And is there a very strong relationship between what we hear and what we see?
No problem. Regarding O Pioneer, there's O Pioneer, there's Mother Courage, there's Hector Man, are all albums that I haven't kind of picked. I picked 5 because I thought I don't want to over egg it. And also O Pioneer, there's so much going on in terms of the, actually with a lot of the drums and orchestral percussion and Hammond, that it wasn't one that would come so easily to performing just on the piano. And Phil, yeah, I will pick up on that later if that's okay, regarding Tim and Gary, who I actually are on my list to speak about tonight, because that, yeah, they've been kind of with me through everything, and up until that point, Tim was responsible for the illustrations, and that was the last record that he worked on. Maybe this would be a good time as well, maybe to start the record playing. I think, Paul, just to give us to break the silence that is otherwise there. Here it comes. Phil, this was, I think, one of the first songs that we wrote. It's actually really, really quiet. That could come up, I think. There it is.
Oh, there it is. That pulsing
Yeah.
synth bass. Yeah, well, this was, well, in terms of what we wrote together for this record,
Yeah.
was the very first. And we wrote this in
Your spare room.
yeah, that's right, in the spare room in Millfields Road in Hackney. And actually, this, I think probably every writing session we'd done before this, I'd always had, as I do for most writing sessions, always had some kind of kernel of an idea, or like a little progression or a song title or anything. And I think this was the first one where I had just sort of left it open completely to whatever was going to happen. And I remember, I think I set up the computer, set up the mic or the piano, whatever we were doing, and then I said to you, I'm just going to go for a pee. And I came back and you had written most of the first verse of the lyrics, and you said, oh, what do you think about this? And we flew in type formation. It was the whole thing. It was just, yeah, really, really amazing words. And then, as is often the case when we write together, you start pulling out these amazing chords that I don't even know what they're called. And then I think, yeah, and then we eventually kind of got to the chorus, and I heard a melody a little bit more. And as ever, writing with you is amazing because you're able to go, oh, we could do this, or what about this? Or I remember the first time writing with you, when we wrote I Never Thought This Day Would Come, you were just vamping all these different chords. We could go a little bit more gospel, or we could go a bit more Disney. And I was just like, oh, this is brilliant. I don't even need to know this shit. It's got it, you know. But
Well,
yeah,
I-
it was the first. It was the first.
I remember in this song, I think we used the vocal that's on the record. It's actually the vocal from the demo.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
So you had a microphone set up, and I remember
Yeah.
you had washing maybe hanging behind, kind of, which acted as quite a good kind of acoustic baffling.
Baffle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to
And,
say we didn't realize at the time, but it's kind of a visualization of Wingman, which is what the song's called.
yeah, yeah,
But sort of huge sheets
yeah.
billowing behind you.
Well, the song actually came, the idea of Wingman, because I think I had the idea of I wanted to write something about that, but it came about from I was on tour with
Leaky.
Leaky, that's right, and Leaky, we were in the Roisin Dove in Galway, and Leaky wanted to meet someone, and so I decided I could be his wingman for the evening, and it was absolutely disastrous. But that was the silly kind of germ of an idea for a title.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, of course, it went somewhere completely different. But
Yeah.
What I loved about this writing session, and what kind of prompted me then to ask you if you would be up for producing the record, was because what you created around the demo sounded so interesting and orchestral, but with like it was synthetic strings and things, but
Yeah.
it had its own kind of feel, its own charm, and there were so many then of the writing sessions that what you did in the demos ended up on the record.
Yeah. 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 I guess that's probably been quite a common thing of records I've produced. I think I find it, I mean, I'd love nothing more than just getting a song, even the bare bones of a song, and being asked to put something kind of around it. And you can always wait until the studio to do that, but I guess so often, yeah, I'm too impatient to wait for that. I want to start trying stuff and seeing what works. And your instinct then is to make it sound as brilliant as you can, especially if you've just written a song with someone, with you in this case, and you just, you hear these things. Sometimes you don't even hear them. You just go, well, let's start messing around, and you start messing around with this or that, and add this, and before you know it, you've got an arrangement. And it's, I guess, in terms of production, you kind of, that's where the magic moments are and the discovery is, because you're just messing around, and that's happening there. There's the other approach is to just trust it to some great musicians.
Yeah.
Which we did more with other of your records. We just get in a room and make it work. And I think they're both magic, I think, in their own way.
Yeah. Well, this song that's currently playing is another case in point, because I wrote it with Ian Archer, who is a good friend of both of us, and has some incredible co-writes under his belt now, and also a great artist in his own right.
Yeah.
But I went to his writing room at that, or studio, which was also in a loft above an old church, I think, in London.
The Bell Tower in St. Luke's in Holloway.
The Bell Tower, that's right.
Yeah.
And I'd been reading about elephant graveyards, and about an account of one man who kind of had gone looking for an elephant graveyard and then had mysteriously disappeared. So I just had this idea of like going and looking for the person that had gone to look for the elephant graveyards. So that's all I had, kind of in my bag. And Ian just started strumming along and getting some ideas up. So he pretty much came up with the chorus that we can hear now, based on the verses and the lyrics that I'd written, but he kind of threw this chorus into it. And then we went back to his house later in the day, and he was straight onto the computer adding layers of ideas, of sounds, and kind of embellishing that initial idea. And then you were collecting all the different kind of offerings for this album. That was part of your job, I suppose, was to kind of listen to it, because I was writing with loads of different people, and then firing you the results, and you were, I remember you saying, "Oh yeah, we've got to do this one."
Yeah, well, it was immediate. I mean, I think you might have even, that day you came around, or maybe it was the second time you came around, I remember you playing literally the roughest demo of that song that you'd literally just done that day.
Okay.
Which already sounded great. And yeah, Ian's fantastic, and I've obviously had the pleasure to work with him lots over the years. Not for a while now, but yeah, it was great. And I think so many of the tracks on this record were kind of, and I think you were probably at a point where you wanted to do something slightly different.
Yeah.
And you kind of alluded to it earlier that, you know, what drives you as an artist is always moving on and always doing something different than what you did before. That kind of feeds your creativity.
Yeah. Record labels love it because it's so easy to pigeonhole you then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Could we have the next record completely different than anything you've done before?
Yeah. And on that note, Phil.
Well, on a similar subject, really, Tim Pardo says, was there anything in particular that prompted the different sound on this record? And while we're talking about albums and sounds, Leslie Bulldog says, Phil Wilkinson made 2 great electronic albums that seem to inspire Lookout Machines sound-wise. Were they influenced? Did they actually influence this record as well? So where did the changes come from? Did they come from Phil? Did they come from... how did that change come about? Well, those changes.
Yeah. Hi, Tim, and hi, Leslie. Phil, if I may first,
of course.
I would have played Sad Paw, actually, except I can't find it in Spotify or iTunes. But like what I love about this record and what I love about your writing is the rhythm in the words, the rhythm throughout generally. That is somewhere that I wouldn't come so naturally to me playing the piano. I can play kind of interesting chords, and there's always I'm trying to create melody, but the rhythm end of things is something that wouldn't come so naturally. And then also I love your turns of phrase in lyric writing, because depending on who you're writing with in co-writing, there's people that really care about the words and people who the words aren't their thing. You know, that it's too personal. You know, it's for the artist to come up with the words. But I love what I love writing with you is that we're both. I'll talk about something in a minute as well that was around this time, Edison Folly, but the kind of sparring almost of lyrics and trying to come up with lines that really work. Step to the Magical is another example, but that's playing at the moment. But I mean, your sensibilities, I suppose, coming from maybe Sadpo and other things you were working on. You were, I was kind of saying, Phil, I love what you do. Bring that into what I do.
Yeah. And I think it kind of happened. It wasn't even like overly by design, just that we'd happened to write. We wrote Wingman together, and I put together a demo with it, not thinking that it was going to be anything more than a demo. And I'd probably done demos of songs we'd written before and sent them on, and on the record, in a great way, it was taken in a different direction. So, and you know, being some kind of audio philistine, essentially, I'm just like, I've got a MIDI keyboard and I've got maybe a tambourine and a microphone, and I'm just gonna like, well, what am I gonna do? I can hear this, I can hear that, and I'm just like throwing it in, and you kind of mess with the sound until it kind of sounds cool. So I mean, in some ways, that's all it is. It's just like, and that's all Sadpaw was. It was just work with the tools that you've got. So you've got you can program on Logic or GarageBand or Pro Tools or whatever it is you've got, and then you kind of mess with the sound until it sounds pleasing to you. And then you write over that, or you just have an idea, you write on an instrument and take it from there. So I think it just happened. Yeah, I guess I just did what I normally do with things, or just what I naturally did with things. And in this case, it kind of sparked off something in you. Whereas maybe in years previous or even years subsequent, it might have been, oh yeah, this is a great song, but we're going to do it this way instead, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Sorry, go ahead.
No, just saying, like, for, Hallow or something, or which is a different thing again, but this wouldn't have been the thing.
No.
It was more about something intimate and abstract, and, so.
Yeah, I think I was just up for, this feels really good what we're doing. Let's kind of go with this. Yeah. And allow it to kind of be, completely express itself. And I don't know that, I guess that's the muse, if you want to be philosophical about it. But it's just, okay, well, let's trust your judgment on this and go with it.
Yeah, totally. And I think
a couple of other questions that kind of lead on from that, so I'm sorry to butt in if that's okay.
No, that's okay.
Whilst you're there, the whole concept of whether the version that you record, the first version, is the most important version, the concept of interpretation, which has obviously played a huge part in what you do and all your different live touring bands, solo duos, and so on and so forth. A couple of questions along those lines. George Blackwood says he saw the tour in Mandela Hall, a very different band. Did it need that energy to get the message across? And then Rich Southgate says, Lookout Machines and Solo from Windmill Lane are different interpretations of some of the same songs. How easy is it to approach the same song in different ways, i.e. full production versus more stripped back? Are there endless ways you can interpret your own songs? Or do you have a clear idea of exactly how you want a song to ultimately sound when you're writing it?
Well, very good question. Well, the first one again, Phil? Or was that a long question?
No, the first one was a short question, so that was all right. That was about the live band, whether you felt you needed a live band that would give you real energy.
Yeah, I think the band was, from Mandela, was Phil, yourself, and was it Mark? And who else was in that?
Is that Mandela? For that tour?
Yeah, for Lookout Machines, we did there and London and Dublin.
It was yes, it was Mark, Paul, me, and Wonder Villains, Ryan McGorty.
Ryan, of course it was Ryan. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, to answer the question about interpretations, yes, I do think there are endless interpretations, as many interpretations as there are people in the world. You could take any song and You could have like 100 different versions of that depending on who it is and the influences they're bringing. I think that's what's so incredible about, yeah, about writing, because you write something which is from yourself and you put it out there, and then it's kind of open to anyone else to merge their own experiences, their own influences, and spin it off in a completely different direction. So that's a really exciting thing, actually. And what I'm finding from doing the alternate weeks where I have to play them all on the piano, like I'm playing Son of the Left Hand, I was practicing earlier, and it's I think the mistake would be to try and replicate what's on the record on the piano. that would just be a car crash. And definitely I've tried to do that sometimes in the past, where you try and compensate for everything that's there. But I think the best thing is actually to let it be something completely different. As Michael Longley said, the worst Hollywood movies are the ones that try and stick too close to the book. It's almost like a different art form when you do it on your own than it is with a band, and you need to just let it be something else. And then you find something else in the song, I think, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
A different emotion, or a line that's. I mean, you're always trying to find the dust, the magic dust.
I thought you were going to say the money.
Yeah, if only I'd ever thought of that. But you're always trying to find like the just something about a particular performance that really works in that context, in front of those people, with that particular band, with the mood that you're in. All of that, and let it be something unique. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I think that's, I mean, and certainly in relation to production, I totally agree. There's infinite ways to do a song. Like, in fact, we had some people for dinner this evening earlier on, and I was talking about doing this and talking about what this question and answer thing would be and stuff like that. And that's kind of what we were talking about. It's like, production is kind of just clothing, really. It's clothing. It can be quite definitive in terms of what a thing is or how it comes across to people, but it's effectively dressing on the core thing. And the core thing is the song, and it's how you choose to dress it for the public. So when you're doing, in terms of songs from this record, like Son of the Left Hand, which was from the very first inception of the idea through to even live versions that we did as a band, it was always based around that kind of synth bass riff and a very sort of punchy, kind of choppy kind of drums. But actually, when you take that all away, there's chords there, and there's words there, and there's a journey that we went on lyrically.
And that's what I'm having to try and find again.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a different thing. But that is, if you're prepared to then step out each time you go out live.
Here it is.
Like you say, different players, different crowd, different everything, and kind of because this was on the Left Hand now, of course, but. Oh, sorry, I haven't heard. When I listened earlier, I didn't listen.
Confession.
Sorry, not listened in detail for the last 3 weeks.
Phil Nelson. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Phil's appeared. Yeah.
Just because there are two songs that I don't think you've mentioned yet, that two people obviously had real affinity for. So I thought I'd just mention them now. Julie Dawson says, "I'd love to hear you talk more about Statues. It's so beautiful and breaks my heart every time." And Margaret Richards says, "Tweedcoats has so much empathy and feeling. What was the inspiration for that one?"
Yeah. Statues I started writing with Boo Herding, actually, and I suppose it's about uh, uh, grief. It was a kind of a relationship, whatever. But it was about that and the idea of being able to. You don't want to be a statue. You want to kind of keep going, and there's life beyond this, And so it's a song, I suppose, about coming to terms with that and getting over things. Tweed Coats was one that I'd started with Phil, with your brother,
Yeah, that's right.
with Paul for the O Pioneer sessions. I think it was originally like an octagon kind of little loop on the piano that he had found, and we had this kind of germ of an idea again, and I really loved it. So when we were doing this record, I remember finishing it, writing more words, and then also taking a wander around Eastbourne where we're recording, and I think it recorded through my phone, like the train station and things.
Yeah.
And that ended up on the beach and the seagulls and stuff.
Yeah, the pebbles. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of part of the recording as well. I mentioned earlier a memory I have from around this time was driving around, and I looked up where this was, and it turns out it's Ferrybridge Power Station. Do you remember when we were on tour and I was you were opening for me, but also playing, then jumping up when I was on
With my massive tambourine.
yeah, and we kept passing those three big chimneys up around New York.
Yeah.
And that's when we were writing the song Edison Folly, which didn't make it onto the record, but made it onto the limited edition, amazing limited edition wax cylinder version of this record. Like, how many people can say that? But yeah, that was a case of kind of just that sparring in terms of. I remember even when we were like sharing a room in the hotel and stuff, and we were still like kind of shouting lines at each other about things that might work or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I think we started it in the hotel room, and then we probably fell asleep or something, and then it was the next day when we were driving and we were still kind of swapping lines out, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was maybe towards the end of that tour. We performed it once, as I remember, in Northampton.
Okay.
And I mean, I haven't heard that in probably since
a long time. Well, tune in next week, because I'm going to do it at the end of the concert.
Okay.
This next one is interesting. The writing was with a guy called Gary Clark. Oh my goodness, Phil Nelson, you will know the name, please. It's Danny Wilson, of course.
Danny Wilson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went up to Dundee and had a day writing with Gary, and we wrote two songs together. Actually, one called Tennessee Williams is Breaking My Heart, and this one. And I remember us really struggling to know how this one would fit in, like the feel of the song.
Yeah.
And because I really love the lyrics and I love the melody and what it's saying, but it took a while, didn't it? This was like one of the later ones, even despite the fact that the whole album is called Lookout Machines. But and then Paul Cook's backing vocals, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I remember liking the song as soon as I heard it, and obviously it had importance to the record early on as soon as it was written, because it had the title in it. But I think we slightly tinkered with the writing, didn't we? A little bit at one point. But
that's right.
With the one song going into the studio that we didn't have much of a plan for, as in we felt really happy with the verses, and then we weren't sure where the chorus was going to go.
That's right. Well, actually, it was a co-write between Gary, yourself, and me.
Well, I mean,
in the end,
it was barely. I think what did I get? 7% or something. It's like, I'm not bitter.
It's an important 7%.
But as in, but the song was what you guys had done, and then I think we just tweaked it a little bit, really, in terms of making it do a certain different thing. So I don't know. But yeah, I remember we had like a few different options. I remember even sort of cutting between different approaches, arrangements in the chorus.
That's right.
And I think I remember even Phil being there, listening to things. I remember driving down from London to Eastbourne, sort of imagining and being up in the artist's flat at the studio as well, and sort of demoing up some kind of vague kind of idea. In fact, I think I even, for this one, it's just come back to me being in the artist's flat at Echo Zoo Studios. I'm thinking, oh, do we need to put it into 6/8?
Yeah, we tried
We tried
several
it.
kind of crazy,
Yeah.
quite radical rhythmic
is-
changes.
Is a common production technique of mine. At the last minute, freak out the artist by suggesting putting it into a completely different time signature. But actually, I think sometimes that can be a really kind of cool thing. It didn't, obviously in this case we didn't go with it, but that can kind of almost be cool. Some songs just scan well.
Yeah. I mentioned Paul Cook on backing vocals here.
Yes.
Paul Cook and the Chronicles, isn't that his?
Paul Cook and the Chronicles, yeah.
Yeah, so he supported me on tour
He did.
on a yeah, I can't remember what year that was, but I think maybe I'd met him through yourself.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think I'm trying to think exactly how that came about, but yeah, it would have been through me. So Paul years ago was in a band called Vessels, who I absolutely, they only made one record and like one EP, but I was obsessed with them. And we ended up becoming really great mates in later years, partly because I kind of stalked him. I went down to some little acoustic show he was doing.
He was telling me about that.
And recognized them at the bar because I'd been to see them like maybe once or twice.
Sorry, 1 second. Phil. Keep talking.
Yes, I'm going to keep talking to an
Yeah,
empty
keep talking.
screen.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You got a bucket there, Peter. And yeah, and we got talking after the show. We kept in touch and he's still a really close friend of mine. And every record I've produced, I've always got him in to do backing vocals because he's just, yeah, he spins things in a really, really interesting way. I mean, he can give you a straight fifth or a straight third, whatever you want, but he will always give you something extra, which completely, I think, especially for vocalists, for songwriters listening back to something that comes in from someone else, you know, often people want to have complete control over that thing themselves, but actually, I think in terms of what Paul does, I mean, he's literally one of my favorite ever songwriters, and he always delivers something really special. And yeah, so you should check out. I think Paul has just released a new record, or is just about to. Paul Cook and the Chronicles.
Okay.
He's done it with Julian Simmons, producer friend, and they've done it at Conk Studios, at Kink's place. So it's lots of warm, valvey, and beautiful melodies. Which so I definitely recommend that.
Okay, that's good to know.
As I would also recommend this.
Jump Shed, I know that one.
Product placement. Tonight's web chat has been sponsored by. A couple of questions. We've had
and none of this is true. It's just, I've drunk a bottle of wine. So.
we got our first ever question from producer Paul. So there are lots of Pauls, there are lots of Phils. So producer Paul, ably running things behind the scenes. Paul asks, has performing these albums over lockdown brought any songs into contention for future live shows that would not normally have been considered for set lists? I might actually add to that. Has this whole process actually, we talked a little bit last time about some of the projects that you might have up your sleeve to keep you busy for the next 10 years. Has anything actually come from this process? Whether it's rediscovering some of the bits of your oeuvre from the past, or even the process of how lockdown has changed things?
There's definitely some songs that I hadn't ever considered playing live. There's a couple from I Never Thought This Day Would Come that I really enjoyed playing. And the last one, which was Under the Dark Cloth, a couple that Probably I wish I'd played more, so I could have done it better last week. But yeah, that I would consider doing again. I think, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to know kind of how the end of this is going to be. I generally haven't been playing so many live shows, so I think it's been a really lovely way of reflecting back on the last almost 20 years, I suppose, and seeing kind of all the different places that I've been. Yeah, so I'm not sure what way it'll go from there, but yeah, I'm loving the opportunity to revisit the songs in a really kind of intimate way. Yep. Phil, it's you and me. I feel like suddenly I've just been telling you a lot.
Yeah, that's it. Phil asks a question and then he just like disappears, leaving you to fend for yourself.
This is Tweed Coats on at the minute. I wanted to say the other people that have played in the record. So Dave Lynch, just amazing Moog solos and stuff, like Nail on the Head, just back there.
Yeah.
Some incredible stuff. So we'd go off, and then come back or walk in, and he'd be like completely freaking out on the Moogs.
Yeah.
And just again, I mean, I spoke so highly of him before, but just the ability to create these textures and sounds and atmospheres and actually increasingly like incredible melodies, like the thing that he did with Sasha recently.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Like
that's it.
crazy
Yeah.
Moog stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Dave is, I guess he's largely known as an engineer producer, both of which he does incredibly. But he's, as a musician himself, is amazing, absolutely amazing. He would, I mean, personally, he would outwit or outplay most people we know, I think. But that's not his thing. He likes to be recording it and being creative in that way.
Yeah.
But
Behind
I
the
mean,
scenes.
there's enough I can't remember many records I've worked on really, certainly in production capacity. I always work with Dave and obviously work with my brother a lot as well. And both of them, they just have a thing. They just do their thing and they will, I've heard Dave say so many times, just give me half an hour,
Yeah.
So you go off and have a smoke, or you go off and have a walk, or sleep, or whatever, and you come back, and he's like, he hasn't like just changed the EQ on the snare sound or the string parts or whatever. He's done this entire arrangement.
Well, it's like this ingredient into a meal that you would never have thought of, and just really works.
Yeah. And I think he brings that to his recording as well. So there's like there's a writer and a composer and an artist at work when he's doing those things.
Yeah.
So it's not just, here's the mic, put it here, press record. There's an art form beyond that. And I think the more creative you are with that, the more amazing the records sound. And I think, for both Dave and Paul, I think the records they've worked on speak for themselves in terms of the quality, that love of creating unusual, amazing sounds. Yeah. From sometimes really a limited palette, it's brilliant.
This song that's on at the minute, which is the last song on the record, actually, Domino. No, it's not. It's the penultimate song, actually. It's called Stepping Stones. That was completely untrue, everything I said. But I wrote this. I remember Peter Fleming was a manager, and he contacted me, and a young up and coming artist called Fiona Hart was interested in maybe co-writing. So we tried writing, and I remember it was in my writing room in the OES Centre, and up on my shelves was Seamus Heaney's interviews called Stepping Stones, and that was the inspiration for the title. And we started writing, and basically imagined this old man literally at the end of his life, and everything had come to nothing, and he was on his own and lonely and all the rest of it. And So we started writing about that and sparring with lines, and I loved it so much that I said, Fiona, do you mind if I use that on my record instead of instead of for you? And I remember did a demo of it, and it was one thing, but then what we did for this record, I think this is one of my favorite songs in this record, in terms of the production, because like the drums here. The drums just back there. But
Yeah.
those, yeah, I love the dynamics of the song, and then of course Gabby, your wife, is singing on it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, something. It's a good case of where the original demo is one thing, but then partly to bring it into the world of the rest of the record,
Yeah.
but also to find a kind of something that just even makes it even better. I think the production in this is really fantastic.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the ones that we kind of left open to chance, not open to chance so much, but it wasn't pre-designed or overly thought of before. Like we had a great demo that we based it on, and then added things. We got Paul, I think, to put some guitar on, and it was Dave.
Yeah,
The guitar stuff that Paul did was amazing, and then Dave did the kind of arpeggio kind of synth stuff.
yeah.
And I remember adding kit to it quite late on,
Mm-hmm.
and adding those fills and stuff like that. So it was kind of something that was a little bit, probably compared to some of the other tracks, was a bit more organic in the room.
Yeah,
People adding things in and seeing where it led us.
Paul's guitar on that is incredible as well. Phil,
Yeah.
A couple of questions to do both with work that you've done here. Phil, do you feel that being a drummer informs you as a writer and producer? Is a question from Jackie Dickinson. And Rich Southgate again says, how does writing music and lyrics in collaboration with someone else compare with writing on your own?
Well, Jackie, am I getting the name right?
yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi. Yeah, I've always felt like I play any instrument I play. I've always felt like I play it or do it like a drummer. I kind of always kind of finding the rhythm in something. So even playing guitar, I will always kind of replicate what I would do on a drum kit. I'm kind of trying to do that on a guitar. It's not an intellectually decided thing. It's just like what I do. So like when I play guitar, I'm always doing the bass drum on the bottom string, and I'm playing with my hands and trying to create like subdivisions of timing. And certainly, I mean, that was something we spoke about earlier, Peter. Just a rhythmic thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're always thinking of how can I spin or how can I phrase these words over this music in a different way. And I guess that's how a drummer thinks. Or certainly how I think as a drummer is, how can I, you've got this lovely progression, what am I going to do? Am I going to go against it, or am I going to just back it up and just mark the bars and mark the chord changes? What subdivisions or syncopations can I add to that? And I think probably just naturally that happens when you're writing songs as well. So,
Yeah.
Rather than starting on beat one where the first chord comes in, you wait half a beat, or you wait a beat, and just play around with that. So I think, I think a lot of singers and guitar players always sort of say, I'm a frustrated drummer, that's what I do. I just like hammer it out. But I'm not I'm just a drummer. That's all I do. I'm a frustrated pianist, songwriter, singer, everything.
Well, you do all of those really well. So
It all comes out in that thing. So I think it informs my songwriting style probably a lot. And if anything, I try probably in recent years to unpick that and go at it from a non-rhythmic perspective.
to answer, sorry?
Over to you for the second part.
Yeah, well, I was going to say to answer Rich's question, it's different every time. Like sometimes the lyrics are something that it's an experience, your own experience that you're writing about. So you like have this vested interest, but in getting it right. But I think, like I mentioned before, there are certain writers that I love working with who care equally about the content of the lyrics. Phil, forgive me for I took the liberty of, because I knew the album would run out before, so you might know this record.
Is it the soundtrack to Black Beauty?
Well, it could be. Yeah, you'll get it. But I think you're going to know this, Phil. Surely.
Yes,
Yes.
I do know this.
Okay. So this album is Phil, you, and your brother, and Tim Millen, who I'll speak about in a moment, and Jono, the Amazing Pilots, which came out before Songs from the Deep Forest, actually. An incredible record. So anyway, I took the liberty of asking to play this. I think with the lyrics of songs, it's always about, like, I'll always have a conversation about a song if I'm co-writing, about what it is I'm trying to say in the song, or what I'm thinking it's gonna, just what I want to come across, and like I've worked a lot with Boo, and he's fantastic with this as well, where he's like this a bit of a bouncing, what's the word? The phrase of like someone to bounce off ideas.
Yeah.
So there's an experience in, okay, I think that would work there, to say what you want to say, is what he would almost be imparting. So I think a good co-writer, if they're working with someone who has something that they want to say, is enabling them, is facilitating almost their vision, their message to see the light of day, to be articulated. And the co-writer is the person who's maybe putting in phrases that seem to, are an interpretation of what the artist is wanting to say. But I think it's a very generous and a very giving kind of thing. But it's a really skilled thing to do well. What do you think, Phil, in terms of lyric co-writing? Because that is the more personal thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, lyrics have always been really like, well, I will like, or and a lot of music fans will say, "Oh, I'm not bothered about words," or I don't really care what the words are. And even a lot of songwriters would be the same. It's just put something in that kind of works, But I think even for those writers, I'm a big believer in the fact that, or the idea that you're saying much more than you think you're saying, even when you don't realize it. So you've got 5 minutes to finish a lyric, to put something in. You're writing with someone and you've got 10 minutes. Okay, bang it down, put something in, and there'll be something you've said in that throwing it down just to scan something out that will be meaningful. You won't necessarily realize it at the time or the next day, but maybe in 2 weeks' time you'll come back to it and go, "Oh, okay." You're kind of mainlining something from your subconscious that takes a while for it to sort of filter through. And I think lyrics are massively, massively undersold in terms of how much music moves people. The sort of listeners will claim it doesn't really, well, I kind of vaguely like this or like that, but I think it's hugely important. And I think writing partnerships, as we've talked about already this evening, when they work well, it's, just sparring is a great way to say it. We've laughed about it, I think, and when I was writing with Stuart Agnew, it was the same thing. When someone says a line to you and you go, "I really like it, but it's not right yet. It's not the right thing." It's kind of, you find ways of going, nearly, but the thing that person says sparks off an idea, and what the other person says,
You wouldn't have
and
got
then
to
you
it
both
otherwise.
you both know when you've got it.
Yeah.
Because someone will just go and then say the line, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, no brainer. It's like there, and it's, I don't know. I think it's exciting enough writing words on your own whenever something just lands for you. But I think something exciting when two of you are in a room and going, yeah, what is this? What is this? What is this?
I
You know,
think
what does it mean?
I think you can get to get to the destination a bit quicker when you're co-writing, because
Yeah.
you can kind of puzzle yourself and go, okay, is that good? But it's good if you're working with someone who can actually call it and say, no, actually, that's really shit. And what were you thinking? That's the worst line I've ever heard.
Yeah, but the trick is to find ways of saying, no, I think that's shit, but in a really, really nice way.
Shit sandwich.
Just
I lo-
following up on that subject, and I want to give you time to talk about the artwork if you so wish. But
Yes.
because this is about songs, I've got a great question from Martha Casey for you both. What song do you wish you had written? Let's shut them up.
So many.
Well, I guess I'd be kind of back to my kind of what are my favorite songs of all time, and which songs do I wish I'd written. These will probably be random, based on. I wish I'd written "Blue" by the Jayhawks. I wish I'd written "Sister Jack" by Spoon. I wish I'd written "Take It With Me" by Tom Waits. In fact, I wish I'd written a lot of Tom Waits songs.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I would definitely take.
I'm kind of turning into. Was it Renfield? Is that the character? Becoming more.
Tintin?
No,
Tintin?
no. Tom Waits' portrayal of in Dracula, is it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't even really think. I wish I'd written "Hot Tears" by Leif Vellebeck.
Okay.
I really, really wish I'd written that.
September Song by Kurt Weill. I wish I'd written that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. It almost just becomes.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I actually did write that, Peter.
Oh,
Yeah, I gave away the publishing, but
you sold out.
yeah, I know. Yeah, you selfless son of a bitch.
Some other people that were on this record that I wrote with, just to mention.
Yeah.
So wrote with yourself, with Boo, with Fiona Hart, Ian Archer, Paul Pilot, Gary Clark, Jonathan Cornby, and David Saw. That was a really interesting thing, because that was almost like a blind date kind of thing, where I was working with them in Rack Studios, and I had a couple of ideas, but that became Domino and In a Dive.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah, it was kind of that thing where, okay, time's running out, I have to come up with something, and so all the lyrics come out in quite a short space of time.
Yeah.
And,
But both great, amazing tracks. I mean, In a Dive particularly is kind of, I don't know. I mean, I absolutely love that song. I think, and the stuff they added to the arrangement,
yeah,
which we kind of took
yeah,
verbatim mostly for the record.
the Gabrielle kind of string things.
Yeah,
But yeah, that bum ba 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 was David Saw. He came
Yeah.
up with that little melody. Players on the record, so Dave Lynch on Moogs and synths,
Mm-hmm.
yourself on drumming, and a huge amount of programming,
yeah,
and some vocals. Kirsty and Rachel on strings.
yeah. So Kirsty Andrew on violins and Rachel Lander on cello. Both did an amazing kind of job.
So they come in and played
Mm-hmm.
live strings sometimes over like the string parts that you'd.
That's right, and we
Put
kept a
down
lot
the-
of the old program strings, but
That's
added kind of real strings to the top of it. I think did we have Mark Prentice on
Yep.
electric bass?
Mark Prentice was on bass guitar, because he actually played fretless,
That's
which
right.
was really, really a lot concerned about initially, just because of the maybe
Connotations.
yeah, the connotations fretless bass might bring you, but it was really beautiful.
Yeah.
Gabby on vocals, Paul
Yeah.
Cook on vocals,
Yeah.
Paul Pilot on guitar, and I was thinking I couldn't remember if Ben Castle played this, but he played flute on
Definitely
one
had.
song.
Yeah. I can't remember what song.
I think it might have been Son of the Left Hand.
It must have been Forgettable.
He's actually who I'm chatting to in a couple of weeks' time, so I'll tell him.
Yeah. Do. I'll let him know. I'll let him know I've said it. Yeah.
Christoph and Dave. Christoph playing an absolute blinder as Dave's kind of wingman in Eastbourne. Ed Woods mastering.
Yeah.
Great job. And yeah, just to say about Tim and Gary. So Gary on his own did the first the first 2 EPs. He designed those and did the illustrations for. Then a friend, Johnny McEwen, did the green color on Your Vandal. I'd just seen the film Sideways and said I want something green like that. And then Tim came on board, and Tim and Gary then became this kind of amazing partnership of art, of design and visualizing what I was trying to do with the music. So that was the kind of the last album that Tim worked on, because he wanted to go and do more of his painting as opposed to illustration. So yeah, so that's it. And then Greg Butler, if you remember the listening party we had in Eastbourne, Greg came and did a talk about the recording process, and from wax cylinders right through to the modern day, which became then the wax cylinder edition that we had for this, which is pretty incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, Phil Nelson, if you've any other questions for Phil Wilkinson at this moment in time, please.
Well, I don't know whether they're specifically for Phil Wilkinson, but there was a question that I thought was quite interesting, which, if I can find it again, Neil Hannon is releasing all his albums with tons of demos and unreleased stuff. Would you ever consider doing the same, or releasing the demos only even on Bandcamp? Is there stuff in your attic, in your loft, or indeed possibly even in my office that you might actually consider to have the light of day? I've just realised I'm now asking that question to Peter, who appears.
Well, I can try to answer this on Peter's behalf.
I think you should.
I'm pretty sure, like for every artist has a trove of stuff related to any record they've made that probably any fan would be absolutely dying to hear. It's just whether the artist deems that stuff to be important. You know, you kind of, everything works towards the record itself. So it's whether you actually feel that stuff's valuable to kind of hear. I actually think it's kind of interesting. If I'd had more time in the lead up to this, I was actually going to dig out some of the writing demos that we'd done for this record, but I just didn't have time. And
no, I think that's what's interesting about, as Peter said earlier, because with so many other artists, there is a definitive version, and everything else is demos, acoustic versions, remixes, but they all kind of exist in an orbit around the definitive version. What Peter was sort of saying earlier was perhaps there isn't necessarily, the recording on the album isn't necessarily the definitive version. So sometimes in this sort of period where people do seem to allow their fans into the back room to see the process through the demos and through the alternative versions or the versions that didn't make it. The question, I guess, is that something that Peter, you think is attractive to you, attractive to other listeners, or does that feel like that's kind of the stuff that wasn't as good?
There's generally a reason why some things don't go on the record. It's interesting for Lookout Machines. I'd co-written with lots and lots of people. It was just something that I wanted to really throw myself into, and some big names that I'd actually written with, and those songs I really liked, but they didn't end up on the record. And I think part of it is maybe an equivalent is like an art exhibition where you paint lots of pictures, and then there begins to, it takes shape like a certain theme, or okay, that one is really important, and then everything else is built around that. So that becomes the shape of the whole album or the exhibition. And there's some that orphans, I guess, as Tom Waits has done an album of that, and others as well. So yeah, sometimes there are good songs that are out there that don't make the records, but yeah, that would be my thought.
Cool.
What else did I miss? Can you tell me everything again?
You'll have to wind the tape.
I'll watch it back.
No,
Exactly.
I made a commitment on your behalf, Peter, that you would release everything that was in the vaults, because you do obviously have vaults.
Yeah, they're just next to Prince's. Yeah,
Vaults.
There you go. Yeah, Prince's vaults. Vaults. Yeah, thank you everyone so much for checking in tonight. I will be practicing furiously on my Lookout Machine chops over the next while. Philip Nelson, is there any other things?
I think those were the main questions. Apologies if there's anything that I did miss, but I think that we got to the main things that were asked tonight.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Phil Wilkinson, thank you so much for. Where in the world are you, by the way? For
I am currently in Glasgow, Scotland.
okay. Because of our accents are similar, people might thought we're actually just in the adjacent room.
Yeah,
Each
yeah.
other.
Yeah, there's just a bathroom between us. Yeah, so in Glasgow, Scotland. So as opposed to, is there another Glasgow? Maybe there is somewhere
There
else.
probably is somewhere in the world.
Probably is in the States. But yes, so that's where I am. And it's been a really grey, miserable day. But actually, now finally, at 7 minutes past 9, I don't know if it's a blue sky, but it feels like there's a blue sky. So I think we've.
It's another song I wish
It's probably just a really bluey grey. It's probably what it is. But yeah. Good.
Well, thank you so much for chatting about this record, and I really love it and love your work, man. So thank you, and
Thanks for having me.
thanks to Phil Nelson again for shielding us from horrendous questions, perhaps, and curating the whole thing. Thank you. Thanks to Paul and Jay, and to everyone for coming along tonight. And I'll get a chance to look at the comments afterwards, and hopefully see you all next week for Lookout Machines on the piano. And maybe as we fade out, Paul, maybe you could increase the volume of this amazing track by The Amazing Pilots. Phil Pilot, Phil Wilkinson, thank you all.